if you could all just try more to think in advance of what could go wrong. In Boy Scouts, it was be prepared. When you're laying down in bed at night, what if this happens? If you're pulling into a situation that's strange, what if this goes wrong? That's all we're trying to get you to do today, is just try to be more skeptical. You hate to be skeptical in life, but some of the situations we're going to go over, you have to be a little bit more skeptical than we want to be. In the audience, I'm looking, I don't see Dan Donovan, the congressman, was sending someone, Giuseppe, is he here today? Dan can't be here today, but he is actually the chairman of the subcommittee on emergency preparedness and communication and readiness. It's a good committee to be on, especially since he represents New York. Also, we have here from the Patrol Borough of Staten Island, we have Chief Jones. Raise your hand and stand up.
Good morning.
And Deputy Inspector Brower. Thanks for being here. They have the latest techniques on one of the topics, which is terrorism and active shooter. So if we don't cover everything, I told them to just raise their hand and add to what we're speaking about. And quickly, I'd like the guests here to introduce themselves. Starting to my left from my lifelong friend John, if you could just give a brief description of what you've done and what your expertise is.
Hi, my name is John Gaspar. I'm a retired New York City detective at a major case squad. That was the time that it had become the terrorist task force, so that's a while ago. I moved down to Florida and I became a detective again, and I worked for the sheriff's office and was an administrator there. I taught at a number of different police academies and John Jay College of Criminal Justice, St. John's University, and I was the dean of a college for a little while. And I've been involved actively in law enforcement or law enforcement related issues for about 35 years, so I started when I was 5.
Good morning, my name is Daniel Delgado. I'm with the American Red Cross. Got 20 years on Wall Street as a business analyst and sustainability. I was there during 9/11 and the first attack. Got about another, combined about 20 years of emergency management experience from the corporate side, from nonprofits with Red Cross, with faith groups, etc. Did a lot of work here during Sandy and enjoy serving the community. We also serve alongside, we do mental health with the NYPD as clergy liaison and New York State Chaplain Task Force. So multiple hats, and I think everybody at this table you'll find wears multiple hats. When you serve community in every capacity. So thank you for being here today.
My name is Keshecki. I'm with Tabeek Security and Statewide Fire. I'm the founding president of the New York City Boroughs Now 1013 Association of Retired Police Officers in Staten Island, Brooklyn. I'm the past president of the New York Fire Alarm Association. I'm on the building committee of the National Fire Protection Agency, the NFPA, and I'm here to speak on carbon monoxide.
Good morning, my name is Firefighter George Tabeek. I am previously a New York City police officer, left out of the counterterrorism task force and came over to the New York City Fire Department. Served as a firefighter in Southeast Staten Island, and now I'm with the fire safety unit of the fire department, and I'm going to be speaking about smoke detectors and what to do in case of a fire in your home.
Most of you know me here. I see a lot of familiar faces. I was a policeman in the 70s and early 80s, and I started APD Security Systems in 1977. And I had my son and daughter join me in the late 90s in 2001. And now we each have our own businesses. My son has a central station, one of which is tenants here. And my daughter has Statewide Fire Corp. We're all like a family. We got great people working with us, and we try to provide security from soup to nuts. So the electronic and the security, that's most of my forte. And you're going to be the first one speaking, because the first thing I want to bring up is you watch the radio, you listen to the television, and it says that we're going to have a storm. We're going to have a pretty bad storm. Winds may break, we may get flooding. This has happened before to all of us here in Sandy. What do? Do you leave or do you stay? Dan, could you address that?
Sure. I think the first thing what you're doing today is a big part of your preparation. The military says you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And that's the reality. You have to be constantly ready, preparedness, practicing with your family. If you have children in schools, those are all the different dynamics on what you need to do. What do you need to do? You should be monitoring the radio. So you should have, in our table over there, we have inside that go bag, we have a wind-up radio. Where electricity goes, you should have a wind-up radio. You should be listening to the news forecast. You should be listening to what OEM has. And if you're in a flood zone, how many of you know whether you're in a flood zone or not? Okay. If you don't know, you got 6 flood zones from 1 to 6, and you can find that online on OEM's website or FEMA's website, FEMA.gov, and you should know where to go. If you are going to leave, if you're in a flood zone, you should get out of there. If the advice is that you need to get out, you should get out of there. And you have places that you will shelter in place here on the island. In Staten Island, you got 5 places that are designated: Curtis High School, IS 75, Susan E. Wagner High School, IS 51, and Patrides Complex. Each of those are sites where you would be able to go with your family, and the Red Cross will be there setting up shelters already to make sure that you're safe.
You mentioned the go bag. Could you explain a little bit about what should be in a go bag for something when you're leaving your house if it's an emergency like we're speaking of?
Absolutely. A couple things that should be in there. You should have a flashlight. You should have a charger for your phone. One of the ones, the USB chargers. All the kids know that, all the teenagers know that stuff, but you should have that fully charged. All your phones should be fully charged. You should have copies of any paperwork that you might need, or the option is having a thumb drive that you could have in someone's home with all your necessary paperwork. You should have a wind-up radio in there. Cannabis. You should have water. They sell water that is good for 5 years. MREs. Those are served in the military, ready-to-eat meals, and they're very tasty. They give you enough calories for. They give you enough calories. We have a few veterans here also. They give you enough calories for one day, so you can go with 1 meal a day and survive on that. And there's a lot of companies that pop up. But these are some of the practical things. But how about your medications? Right? If you take medication, you should have that there. You should have your medications. You should have. So these are things that you can keep in a bag in a secure place and train your family. The children should also have their own go bag. And the Red Cross has a pillowcase program that teaches children how to put away things that they need during a disaster.
One last thing is, whether it be terrorism or whether it be active shooter, terrorism specifically, and maybe a flood or a storm, a lot of times, like with the bombing in Boston, what they did is the authorities shut down cell phone towers. So there was no communication. And we're all used to having a phone with us, and we're going to call our loved ones to make sure they're safe, who we're going to meet, whose house we're going to. So it could be likely, and not only that, just the amount of traffic in an event like terrorism, the phones can't handle it. So think of now being without communication, unless you have a landline. People forget that the landline will still work most likely. But there is a way to communicate with a phone.
Yeah, there is, and again, it's about being prepared. Part of preparedness is you're able to still send text. Text messages use a much smaller bandwidth than cell phones. Now, the reality is that you should have a game plan already, especially with your children. Because if this happens and you're at work, the children are at school, where do you meet? You should have a meet place. You should have a place where you're going to meet up. Actually, just about every school in New York City, I know in Staten Island for sure, They have shelter-in-place training. Like my daughter goes to Port Richmond High School. They're set up, in case of an emergency, they have a culinary program there. They can feed, shelter, and house in place. So these are the kind of things that, especially with our children, those with moms, dads, granddads, grandmas, you need to have a plan set up. But the communication, I don't have it with me today, but I still carry a pager. As a responder, I carry a pager because if cell phone towers go down, and even if they don't go down, even if they don't shut down, the traffic on there, you're not going to get through. The reality is, in the disaster that happened in 9/11 and other disasters, so you'll be able to still text on a pager device or even on a cell phone device. And for any enthusiasts out there, ham radios are still one of the best options in any disaster.
A couple of things to remember also, you may want to have some photos of your home, furniture in it, so that if, God forbid, the home is damaged, you can prove to the insurance company what you have. Secure flying objects, stuff in your backyard that you may not think about, that could go flying in a storm, that could hurt you or somebody else. Turning off electricity and gas, because that could cause even more damage by having a gas leak. And electricity also. We know what happened at Hurricane Sandy, where one person went back into their basement, maybe to get their weapon, maybe to get some money hidden, and he got electrocuted in his own basement because of the water and electricity don't mix. Couple of things too, they tell you to put your refrigerator on a little bit colder, so that if you do lose power, the food is already starting at a colder level. And don't forget help neighbors too, emailing people. They may not have sat into the seminar, I don't know why, but email some other people, let them know what they should be doing, because panic sets in and very few people know what to do. Okay, so that's flooding. Now you're laying in bed at night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you hear beep, 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 beep. Come on. Does anybody really know what that beep is? Is it coming from a smoke? Is it coming from carbon monoxide? Is it coming because something is low battery somewhere else in the house? You don't think of it until it happens. I asked my wife last night, I said, what do you do if the smoke is there, if you hear beeping, 2 beeps? I don't know, leave the house. Because we don't plan for it. And I'm guilty of it too. I haven't done half the things that I teach right now. So if you do have the old smoke detectors, they used to have 2 beeps be this, 3 beeps be that. Look what the instructions are. Maybe write on a postcard and put it a bit lower. You have to grab a ladder to go up there and see what the beeping is and read instructions. It's not a good thing at 2 o'clock in the morning when you don't know if you have to run out of that house. So there's a lot of things with carbon monoxide that you have to know. We have a specialist here, and maybe you can enlighten us on what to do with carbon monoxide detection. What do you do?
Good morning, everyone. Carbon monoxide, as everyone probably knows, it's really prevalent in the press when there's a death from carbon monoxide. You don't hear as much about it during the smoke death, unfortunately, on fire death. I mean, the press will say something about it, and then it kind of flows. Carbon monoxide, when someone dies from carbon monoxide, becomes a big thing in all the newspapers, and you see it on the press, and all the politicians want to get involved because they want to try to solve the problem. Carbon monoxide is called a silent killer because it's exactly that. It's silent. There's no odor to it. It's not visible, and you can't see it in your home. What is carbon monoxide? There's CO and CO2. A lot of times people confuse the two. CO2 is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is what your body, you breathe in that every day. But your body has the capability of releasing that carbon monoxide that doesn't belong, or carbon dioxide that doesn't belong to your body. Carbon monoxide is not the same. The blood doesn't have the capability of releasing carbon monoxide when you breathe it, and that's the reason for the symptoms that start off almost right away. What causes carbon monoxide? It's the incomplete burning of various fuels, including coal, wood, charcoal, oil, kerosene, and natural gas, all of the above. What can carbon monoxide come from? Malfunctioning of many different things. It could be a furnace, a boiler, a space heater, a kerosene heater, a wood stove, a fireplace, your stove. In New York State each year, about 450 people are hospitalized, and 55 fatalities on average in the state of New York alone. In 2007, everyone probably heard about Amanda's Law. Amanda was a teenager in Buffalo, New York. went to sleep at a friend's house. There was an issue with the boiler. It was spewing carbon monoxide. No one recognized it, and she passed away in that house. And as a result of that, Amanda's Law was created. What did Amanda's Law do? It mandated carbon monoxide detectors in all residences. One-family homes, two-family homes, multi-family homes, rentals. And pretty much one on each floor, one in each bedroom, one outside every fossil fuel burning appliance. What's a fossil fuel burning appliance? All the things I just went over. Could be a boiler, could be natural gas, coal, whatever it might be. So it required, it just changed the whole law on the residential side. All right, and everyone now has to have carbon monoxide detectors. NFPA, that we belong to, they recommend at least one outside each bedroom area and one on each level of every home. New York State's law is more stringent than that. Carbon monoxide detectors. Everybody sees it sitting in the wall. What exactly does it do? Carbon monoxide, as we're learning, as time goes on, is not exact science. Originally, manufacturers, when you bought that low carbon monoxide, it would tell you mount it 6 feet above floor level. Well, where are you going to find an outlet 6 feet above floor level in your house? You can't. All right, so the rule of thumb was, okay, we buy it at Home Depot, we buy it at Lowe's, we take it home, we stick it in the wall, the light comes on, and we figure out it's working. The older carbon monoxide detectors, I need to tell everybody, carbon monoxide detectors are very different from smoke detectors. Carbon monoxide detectors have an element inside them that wears over time. Carbon monoxide detectors are breathing constantly just like you are. Smoke detectors, photoelectric smokes as an example, very different. They look for a break in a light beam inside the detector. Carbon monoxide detectors do not do that. They're constantly breathing, and they're checking for what's called parts per million in the air. Once carbon monoxide level gets to 70 parts per million, you can start experiencing various symptoms. All right, and I'm going to go over that in a minute too. The reason why I bring up the older carbon monoxide detectors is you can have smoke detectors in your house that are sitting on the wall, they're yellow, they're sitting on the ceiling, they could be in there for 15 years. You're thinking that they're working, but they may not be detecting smoke. They have to be tested. Carbon monoxide detectors, the new carbon monoxide detectors, even the plug-in ones, have what's called an end-of-life to them, and an end-of-life signal. So that when the carbon monoxide detector does go to end of life and is not capable of breathing the way it's supposed to anymore, it will signal you to let you know that. All right? So what happens when your carbon monoxide detector goes off and what are the symptoms? You have to excuse me, I used to like work for a power plant and I kind of thank you. All right. At the minimum exposure, 70 parts per million, you'll experience headache, fatigue, shortness of breath, nausea, and dizziness. Same symptoms that you might think you're experiencing from a head cold, all right, or from the flu coming on, all right, but it may not be. That's why it's important to have carbon monoxide detectors throughout the house. Once you get to high levels of exposure, 150 parts per million and above, you're going to start experiencing confusion, vomiting, loss of consciousness, and eventually death, you know, if you don't wake up from that. All right, so the whole idea is early detection. Early detection. Carbon monoxide detector is very important. They're required to have them now by law. Every residence is required to have them now by law. They wear out over time. You should test them monthly. Press the button. On the old smoke detectors that you may have had plugged in or battery operated, you may be pressing that button, but the bottom line is that a lot of those older devices, pressing the button only tests the horn. It does not test whether the device is actually working. All right. So make it a rule of thumb to test your detectors and replace them in a timely manner. You want your detector to be UL listed. All right. Just like the products that you buy a microwave, whatever else you might buy, they're all UL listed. They have a listing to it. Products that are listed for UL 2034, those are residential. 2075, those are commercial. They're very different detectors. I'll leave you for a moment. What can cause carbon monoxide in your house, or even outside your house? Operating a generator in your garage. We've had power failures here. You drain your generator out. Where is it? Is it outside your screen door? Is it outside your open window? You're going to get carbon monoxide in your house. If you're going to use a generator, it has to be a good distance from your house. Portable fuel burning camping equipment, whether it be in a tent or any other facility like that, any enclosed facility. You need fresh air. If you're using anything that is going to emanate carbon monoxide, if it malfunctions, you have to have fresh air. Right? Gas appliances like your stove. Many places, we were police officers for a long time in many low-income areas. A lot of these people use their stoves for heat, and they run them all night, they run them for a month. You know, if that pilot light goes out, and I think it's going to create a gas situation, it's create a carbon monoxide situation, right? Very important. Make sure all your vents are clear if you have construction in your house. Or your car's in your driveway, maybe you put your kids in the car while your car's warming up during a snowstorm. And it's actually happened in New Jersey just last year. A teenage girl died in the car because the snow had packed the muffler exhaust. So all the carbon monoxide was leaking into the car. All right, I mean, you know, it's a very sad time with that. You know, legal seafoods. I want to go to commercial premises just a little bit, because I know there's a lot of people here from business. Legal Seafoods in Long Island was a restaurant out there. There was a carbon monoxide leak in the basement. The manager of the seafood restaurant actually went downstairs to go to the bathroom in the basement. They had people who were eating on the first floor were experiencing dizziness. The fire department was called, and they found the manager of the store actually dead in the bathroom downstairs in that restaurant. And that created a huge issue in New York. All the politicians got together, New York State got together, and they created a new law which took effect in June of this year. Every premise has to comply by June of next year. And every commercial premise now has to have, carbon monoxide, by the way, did not come from the restaurant. The restaurant was located in a strip mall, and the store next door had closed. And all of the gas was still functioning, all of the heater, the boiler, everything was still functioning there. Someone went down to service the hot water heater and knocked the flue off, so carbon monoxide filled the entire basement of the strip mall. Right? And now NFPA is looking at how carbon monoxide can actually permeate sheetrock, because that became an issue in the basement of that building. You know, where no one ever thought before that if it was a 2-hour fire in sheetrock, it wouldn't affect any other premise besides the premise where carbon monoxide was. But that turned out not to be the case. So New York State went ahead and passed the law. Every commercial premise now will have to have a carbon monoxide detector. Premises required to have a fire alarm will also have to have carbon monoxide detectors attached to that fire alarm. Commercial premises that are not required to have a fire alarm throughout New York State are also required now to have carbon monoxide detectors. The difference, New York City is exempt. I just saw you look, right? Who would ever think that? New York City is exempt because in a city of 1 million people or more, New York City is not required to follow state code to the letter. So that small bagel store you go into and that small video store you might go into, which is not required to have a fire alarm, in New York City is actually not required to have a carbon monoxide detector either. Where throughout the entire rest of the state, it is required. All right. So anyway, those are some of the things. What happens if your carbon monoxide detector goes off? Get everyone out of the house. Get everyone out of the house, right? You can go down and take a look at your carbon monoxide detector if you feel you're strong enough and well enough to do that. Hopefully, it's supposed to notify you well in advance, right? So if you want to take a look, maybe a low battery going back to what Steve said a few minutes ago. You know, try to know the signals. When you go to a high-rise building, you go into a hotel, theoretically, it's what's called temporal 3 and temporal 4. I don't want to get too technical about it. But when that horn goes off, and it's not even aware of this, right? When that horn goes off, it goes, and there's a space, and it goes, well, that's called a temporal 3. It's common in the fire industry throughout the country. Everyone knows it for years. You're laying in bed, you're in your hotel, all of a sudden that goes off, you get up, you know it's a fire. Well, NFPA developed what they call temporal 4. So that when your fire alarm trips, and it's the carbon monoxide detector, now it goes, and it's a short burst. And it's, How many people in the room are going to stop to listen? Hey, wait a minute, is that 3? Is that 4? Is that 3? I just woke up, we're in a hotel, right? So, check it out. Get out of the building, whatever you have to do, but pay attention to all these signals, all right? What else do I have?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I've read a couple of conflicting things on carbon monoxide. One is if it goes off during the night, and you don't have any symptoms at all, and none of your family has any symptoms, that you may be able to wait for the fire department to come and test it out. And the other would be, they told you about opening up windows and ventilating, but if you do the ventilating before the fire department gets there, would that make it harder for them to actually detect if there's carbon monoxide, because you may have just cleared the air.
It will make it much more difficult. The bottom line is, get out of the house, call the fire department, let them come and test. All the firefighters have a device on their belt now, and I'll use Shaggy's as a perfect example, which came about after illegal seafood. Shaggy's was a sandwich shop on Highland Boulevard, and firefighters stopped in there one day during the meal hour to go in and grab a sandwich. And when they went in, one of the carbon monoxide devices on their belt started buzzing. And I said, what is this all about? The store had totally elevated levels of carbon monoxide. Totally elevated levels of carbon monoxide. And this goes back to, Shaggy's is not required to have a fire alarm. Therefore, they're not required to have a carbon monoxide detector. You know what I mean? So every commercial, I think eventually, hopefully, politicians will get together and solidify this so that all commercial premises in New York City have to have that either. There's a legal issue involved. I went back to that UL stuff before. Certain detectors are permitted for residential and certain for commercial. The commercial ones are quite expensive. You know, Nassau County and the rest of the state is now permitting the plug-in ones, where you're not required to have a fire alarm. So, and then they're using the rule of thumb that something's better than nothing. Better to protect you than not protect you. All right, so we'll see what happens moving on forward. And what Steve said is exactly correct. Don't open your windows, leave your windows closed. What happens if the fire department comes, checks everything out, leaves, and an hour later goes off again? Well, call them again. Call the fire department again. Because obviously there's even an issue with the carbon monoxide detector, but it could very well be that it wasn't detected the first time the fire department got there. I just want to tell you one more thing. You know, I told you that this one day. You know, I was mentioned to you the carbon monoxide detector was working a lot farther than you are when it comes to breathing. And that carbon monoxide detector that you have in the wall, I want to tell you what it actually does. That carbon monoxide detector, if it gets to 400 parts per million, that carbon monoxide detector has to go into alarm between 4 and 15 minutes. That's 400 parts per million. That's a lot of carbon monoxide. If it's exposed to 150 parts per million of carbon monoxide, it must alarm between 10 and 50 minutes. So basically what I'm saying to you is that, and again it goes back to how much carbon monoxide is actually getting into that carbon monoxide detector. Your carbon monoxide detector is probably not going to alarm until it gets to 150 parts per million between 10 and 50 minutes. What did we just say about 150 parts per million? By that time, you're a little dizzy. You know, you may be feeling some nausea and all that. And if it gets to 70 parts per million, which is like the minimum threshold, it has between 60 and 240 minutes to go into alarm, provided the amount of carbon monoxide does not increase. All right? So that carbon monoxide detector is actually working there, and based on various tests, this is what underwriter laboratories have decided it should look for over a period of time. Okay? So this is about as much information, I guess, as I can provide for you in a short period of time.
One of the things Eddie just said is that it could take from 60 to 240 minutes for a carbon monoxide detector to trip under certain conditions. Now, I always thought, listen, we'll troubleshoot. Maybe it's a false alarm from the carbon monoxide detector near the bedrooms. I'll go get the one from the basement, I'll plug it in next to the bedroom. If that doesn't false, then it's a false alarm. That's not going to work based on what Eddie just said.
Steve, I have 1 more minute.
1 more minute?
Yeah, please.
Okay, good. No questions, Bill. 1 more minute.
It was funny, George and I were talking before, generally like he does smoke detectors, I'm doing carbon monoxide, we can talk for a couple of hours. That's a normal presentation. A situation is Staten. I just mentioned that a malfunctioning furnace can create carbon monoxide. Two grandchildren in the living room on the first floor, eating, watching television. They're kneeling on the floor, table, watching television. Grandma is in the other room doing something else with her daughter. And all of a sudden, the two children begin to fall asleep while they're eating. And at first, the grandmother and mother thought that the kids were just tired. Okay? But when they both started becoming dizzy and falling asleep about 6 o'clock at night, they said, well, this is not normal. So what happened was they called the fire department, and I just want to give you a quick scenario. The furnace room was under the older colonial Stapleton. Furnace room was under the first floor, right where the kids were eating. Older house, wood floors. The furnace was malfunctioning. They had service during the day. The food was never put back properly. So what was happening was the carbon monoxide was actually penetrating the floorboards right into the living room. All right. Carbon monoxide detector was placed right outside the furnace room, which you would think would be sufficient, because if the furnace room fills with carbon monoxide, you would suspect that the carbon monoxide is actually going to flow right outside the door, took the carbon monoxide detector. It should, except the basement window was open, about 6 feet from the carbon monoxide detector. So it was actually freshening the air that was going into the carbon monoxide detector while carbon monoxide was flowing through the floorboards up to the first floor. So it's very important that you place your carbon monoxide detectors properly as per manufacturer's instructions and pay attention to them when they go off.
And I have 3 of my grandchildren here. Before their parents let them do sleepovers at other people's houses, maybe we should make sure that those houses also have smoke detectors in
Already a
them.
concern of mine.
You did it, you took care of it.
No, I already
Yeah?
am afraid of sleeping.
Well, my kids, they don't want to make it. I made them so paranoid. We actually had, at the central station, we got a carbon monoxide alarm that went off, and my son actually had to get on the phone because the guy was being rude to one of our operators and said, listen, it's been falsing all day. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with my carbon monoxide. There's no leak here. My son said, well, by law, we have to call the fire department. And when the fire department comes, they come with 3 trucks, there's 15 guys. They came into my house when we had a gas leak. You know, my wife's biggest concern was, did they take their boots off? That was a whole other thing. They came in the basement, they found the leak, it was outside the house. But anyway, my son said, no, we are sending the fire department there. He goes, I don't want them coming there, if you know, canceling my alarm, I'm canceling service, I'm canceling everything, I'm gonna be pissed. And if something happens, he said, I have to send them to you, I have to send them anyway. And he dispatched the fire department. The man had a generator outside his basement window, an extension cord coming in. And he was getting a backdraft. And the generator, remember, you could get it from a source that's outside the house, such as a generator, when you have the proper backdraft conditions. And his house was full of carbon monoxide. And that's what ended up happening. We believe we could have saved that man's life. But, you know, sometimes I'm glad we stick to protocol on things, even though you risk losing a customer rather than losing a life and then regretting. All right, I want to get now into fire. This is smoke detectors. There's a couple of people in the room, one particular that went through it already, and he had a fire in his house, and he saw how quickly the fire spread, and he was able to get his whole family out within a minute or two. But he wasn't able to save the 3 cats because the 3 cats actually hid in the basement. The dogs were barking, so they were able to get the dogs out. And what happened was he had a typical fireplace, like many of us have, and there was an air intake on the side of it, right next to the flames, but an ember got into it, and when many fireplaces, the ones that are preformed, they have the metal flue going up, and then you're surrounded by any kind of a finish that box it out. And it went between the metal flue and the wood, right up to the attic, and it laid in his attic, and it smoldered, and it caught fire. And by the time he got up, there was already smoke. The smoke detectors went off about 15, 20 seconds after the dogs woke him up. They got out of the house within a couple of minutes. He tried coming back in again with a hose from the backyard. And he said by that time, he was just aiming the hose at it, and the hose water was turning into steam. But in this case, at least everybody got out was safe. We had another person there that she actually had tenants in the house, and she wasn't able to get the tenants away. The tenants were actually friends of mine also, and she lost her 2 dogs. And it was a Christmas tree. And the Christmas tree was a real tree, but it wasn't brittle, it wasn't dead. And she had regular Christmas lights on it. One of those Christmas lights shorted and started a fire. And it only takes 2 minutes. And after that point, there's no going back. And the smoke is what the scary part is. I was thinking of even starting my grandchildren to train on how to crawl low in a fire. The woman couldn't talk about it. She didn't even want me to ask her questions about it, but she did lose the 2 dogs, and the 2 people that were tenants upstairs couldn't get out of the house because the staircase was blocked. You should always have 2 different ways of getting out. But luckily, an off-duty fireman happened to be going by. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. Off-duty fireman going by, sees the smoke coming out of the house. They had like a little balcony in the back of the house on the top floor, the 2nd or 3rd floor, wherever they were. And he found a ladder from a house next door, which they shouldn't have, because burglars use those ladders. So, but luckily, these people didn't chain the ladder. He used that and he got the people down and saved their lives. So you hear that things don't strike close to home sometimes, it's always somebody else. In my own house, I had 2 attempted burglaries, 1 attempted robbery, 2 real small fires, 1 small flood. We had a gas leak. This is just about, I started thinking back over the last 42 years. You know, a lot of things there. And so it does happen to all of us, and it does happen to someone you know. So when you're hearing this stuff, take it to heart. And if nothing else, also to try to teach other people to pay attention. But next I want to introduce George Tabeek, to talk a little bit about smoke detectors and fire, and he's a specialist from the fire safety unit of the fire department. George, do you want to use the lectern? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I am going to talk about smoke alarms and what to do in case you have a fire in your own home. But going back to Ed, Ed was talking a little bit about carbon monoxide, and I'm very passionate about all of this: smoke, fire, carbon monoxide in particular, because that's how I got hurt in the New York City Fire Department. And I will tell you, on that morning of October 19, 2004, I had to remove an entire family who was all dead because of it in your borough of Staten Island. Little 8-year-old baby girl, the mother, the grandmother, the birds, the dog, and the cat. And if that whole family would have had at least 1 carbon monoxide alarm in that house, they may have been sitting where you are today. But we didn't have the opportunity to talk to them the way we're talking to you guys. So, I know you live a busy life, you leave here, the kids, the school, the homework, the dinner, the clothes, the doctor, the hair, but people don't think about fire, they don't think about carbon monoxide, but it does happen, and it usually happens when a neighbor on your block dies because of it, and that's when the whole block wakes up, or a relative in Texas, my cousin died, but they didn't have a carbon monoxide alarm. That's why Steve asked us to come here today, to get you thinking before that day was to ever, God forbid, happen. And that's why we're here. When it pertains to smoke alarms and what to do in case you have a fire in your home, first of all, it starts off with realizing what type of residence it is that you live in. In New York City, we have 2 types of buildings. I know Staten Island doesn't have as many, high-rise and large-scale buildings as we do in other boroughs, but if you live in a fireproof or a non-fireproof building, you're going to follow 2 different types of protocols if it's a fireproof versus a non-fireproof. If you live in a private home, know what to do in a private home. Stephen mentioned a scenario. 2 o'clock in the morning, you're in bed sleeping, your smoke alarm goes off. What do? You knew what to do when you were in school, because when you were in school, they practiced fire drills. And when you were sitting in your desk and the bells went off and you got up, you knew if you were going to go right, left, forward, or backward. Why did you know that? Because of repetition, because they practiced it with you. I'm not telling you to go home and stop, drop, and roll and call around the house. But have a plan, talk to your family about the plan, on what that plan is going to be. Because again, you don't think about it until it happens to the lady down the block. So, let's do a scenario. 2 o'clock in the morning, your smoke alarm goes off. You're in your bed sleeping. Get out of bed. Let's use an example as the door is in the closed position. You get to the door, we always teach you to feel the door with the back of your hand, never the front. The reason why is because that door can reach up to 2,000 degrees, and if you do the front of the door with your hand, the front of your hand, if you burn it, now you're not going to have any use of your hand to open up a window or help someone else out. Not only feel the door, but also feel the door handle. Because doors mostly are wood. You may not feel the heat through the wood, but door handles are metal. The metal conducts heat, so you will be able to feel it. If it's cool, the rule of thumb is stay low and go. That's a perfect scenario. Down on your hands and knees, 1 hand on the wall, 1 hand on the floor. Every wall will lead you to a door or a window. As he said, 2 ways out. Okay? Your hand that's on the floor is going to guide the way. And also in case if there's a hole in the floor, if you come upon steps, you don't want to fall down them. So that's what's going to lead you away. Because I can have you go around your house with your eyes closed and you'll be able to do it just fine. But when I throw fire and heat and broken glass and smoke alarms beeping into the equation, it's not going to be the same way. Okay? Get out, go outside, have a meeting place. talk to your family about what the meeting place is gonna be. I'm the chief, I come over there, I see the mom and the dad, I'm gonna say, do you have your whole family here? If you tell me little Joey's still inside, then all bets are off. We're going in anyway, we're going in very aggressively, we do a primary search, we do a secondary search, but if you tell me, hey, everybody's out, the dog's out, the cat's out, the goldfish, everybody's out, then we can maybe have a firefighters fight the fire from a little bit of a safer distance, and we're not so worried about your bed and your curtains burning, we're worried about you guys, all right? Again, perfect scenario, you're out, you're good. That's the only time that we call 911. We only call 911 from inside as if we're trapped. Other than that, we should get outside, and that's the point that we should call 911 from. Now the other scenario, you get to the door, you feel the door is hot. Take a blanket, a towel, or a sheet, put it underneath the bottom of the door. It's a good idea to sleep with a bottle of water by the side of your bed, because if you could wet that blanket, it forms a tighter seal. Okay? Usually the people that we find that unfortunately passed away because of the fire, they look like all you guys here. They usually pass away under the window ledge in most situations, and it's because they're trying to get their last breath of air. And that's because of all the smoke. People die from smoke way before fire ever even gets to you. Okay? You're going to put that blanket, that towel, that sheet to keep the smoke in the hallway and not come underneath the door. Because what happens is smoke goes up, it hits the ceiling. When it has nowhere to go, it starts to, we say in the fire department, it bangs down. When it hits the floor, where does it go? Under the doors. So you want to keep that smoke out and not in. Now, you did that, you're going to call 911. Be very specific with the 911 operator. Don't just say, I'm in my bedroom, there's a fire, I can't get out. No, I'm in my bedroom, on the second floor of my house. My bedroom faces Highland Boulevard, Richmond Avenue. Because every house, every building has 4 sides to it. All right, I went to a fire once in Manhattan, and it came over. The lady's in the northeast corridor. I said, I need a compass for this. I couldn't figure out where she was. But you want to make sure that you're very specific with the 911 operator as to where you are, so that we can find you and get to you in that situation. Then what you do is most people have what's called double hung windows. That means the bottom can open halfway up and the top can open halfway down. And that's what we're going to look to do. You open the bottom halfway up, top halfway down. The concept is that if smoke does enter into that bedroom, it's going to go up to the ceiling and out to the top window, and fresh air is going to replace it through the bottom. Take a blanket, a towel, a sheet, wave it out the window. If you're in a larger building on the 4th floor, 5th floor, I might not see you going like this. Okay, but if I see a white sheet hanging out the window, I can radio, hey, I got a guy or a girl trapped on the 4th floor, we need a ladder. Okay, and what are we going to scream out that window? Huh? What are we going to scream? I always get 2 different answers. I get help, and I get fire.
Location.
Well, I will tell you this. Certain areas that you go to in the 5 boroughs, you scream help, everybody goes the other way, depending on where it is that you are. All of a sudden, everybody's late for work, nobody's coming to help you. But when you scream fire, people are curious. They want to see what's going on. When I was a police officer, I used to go to the school and talk to the children. I used to say, guys, if you're ever walking home from school by yourself and somebody grabs you and tries to pull you into the car, scream fire. You'll get more eyes in your direction screaming fire than if you do help. And that's what we're going to scream from that window. We're going to scream fire, wave that towel, that sheet, and that's in a situation where we're trapped, okay? The other thing is, I don't know how many of you have children, or I was shocked to hear that Steve has 8 of them grandchildren. Young kid like you. The thing with, and this is something that's been for years that I've been doing this, I find that parents come to me and they say, well, I'm not leaving without my kids. And I really want to take those parents and shake them, but I can't because I'm wearing this uniform. And I want to wake them up and tell them, if your bedroom is on this side of the house, and the kids are on this side of the house, and that hallway is what's on fire because there was a fire in the bathroom that came out into the hallway, or your light fixture in the hallway, or an outlet is what's starting the fire, you're not going to be able to get to your son or your daughter. I don't care who you are, as much as all of you here will fight me on this, I'm telling you, there is no way you're going to get from this side to this side. So what you want to tell the kids is mom and dad are going to try to come and get you. And in the case that we can't, this is plan B. And don't underestimate what children can do. Because we had a little 2-year-old who unfortunately killed his mother and his aunt on Albemarle Road in Brooklyn. I was at the fire where the kid, 2 years old, figured out how to light a match, set the bed on fire. Kid runs out, mother and the aunt try to get the mattress out, it gets blocked into the doorway, and they both perished in that fire. So don't underestimate what a child can do if they're shown what to do. Fire escape ladders, excellent. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They make one for a 2-story and a 3-story home. I call it the candy cane ladder because it has 2 candy cane hooks. You hook it on the window ledge, you throw it over the side. It's good. Okay? I was also at that fire in Midwood, where those 7 children passed away. And when she came out of a coma, and I went to go meet with her mom that lost all those kids, she described to me how she just heard her kids screaming, "Mommy, come help me, Mommy, come get me." And she told me, "George, I couldn't get, the fire was in the hallway, it was so hot, it was so smoky, my clothes were burning, my hair was, everything was burning." She says, I couldn't get to the kids. And you know what kind of feeling it is for a mother or a father to not be able to get to their son or their daughter? So you want to show them, this is what you're going to do, okay? And this is something I always tell people. Public schools have been around for over 100 years. You think there's been fires in public schools? Many fires. But you know the one statistic I want to tell you? There has never been a child who has ever died in the 5 boroughs of New York City in the past 100 years at a public school fire. Burn, cut, bruise, broken ankle, yeah, that happens. Die? No. And they attribute it to fire drills and practice. So again, when you go home tonight, talk to your family, come up with a plan, have a meeting place outside, know what to do for everyone, because everyone is going to be in a different room, there's a different scenario. So depending on where you are when that happens, each person in that house needs to know what to do. Okay? Steve, that's good. All right, thank you.
And one of the things George did mention was, you don't hear firemen mention it too much. But if you do start a fire because of your negligence, many times the fireman does. So keep that in mind. That you're risking other people's lives also. People do have fire extinguishers in their house, because we're not saying every fire that you have is a big blowout fire. If you have something that happens on your stove, something that, in our case, my wife used to get a lot of candles in the house. It was very nice, very romantic. Until 2 of them started fires. One because of the log that she had with candles in it. Luckily, the people were in the living room, the rest of my family, and they saw it catch fire. And my daughter Pam came out with some water from the kitchen and started throwing it. And then put it out, did a good job. And the other time, my daughter's father-in-law's shirt caught fire, whatever he was wearing. It was a material that go in there a candle, that's all it took. So now my house is full of all battery-operated candles, and it's much safer. But as for a fire extinguisher, Eddie's phenomenal with it. He checks his fire, he knows where everyone is in his house, and there's different ones, A, B, and C. A means you put out a paper fire, B is an electrical, B is a gas, grease fire, and a C is an electrical fire. But you can get an A, B, C combination. This way you don't have to try to remember which one to put, and that'll put out any of the 3. So get A, B, Cs, put them in your house. Make sure you know where they are. They're not really to hide in a closet. Even though they're not the most, maybe they should come up with somebody's start a business where you get real, Ed Lardy is, why not come? Make real attractive fire extinguishers that you can put in your houses so you don't, if that doesn't match red, what does that do?
Clothes dryers, #1
Number 1 cause of fire, clothes dryers. You don't clean out the lint. Some people don't even have a lint trap in there. And also that vent going out. It's supposed to be good. They used to make them out of a paper bacteria. Now you're better off getting them rigid. But that's a big reason for fires. Don't leave that clothes dryer run when you leave the house. Okay, I know we're running tight on time. I may eliminate 5 minutes of questions and make sure we get some of the next stuff in. It's not likely to happen, but with all the stuff going on right now between terrorism and shooters, I wanted to address what to do if right now we started hearing shots coming in from next door, from the other room. It's not something we practice. What do we do? Do we stay? Do we leave? Do we fight? There's so many options. I brought John here. He's been my friend for life. He was my partner in the police department, and he was an instructor in the academy, in both academies here in Florida. And he's updated himself on some of the latest stuff that the chief and deputy inspector here are aware of. John, if we heard shots right now coming from the other room, and we know they were gunshots, so we assume they were gunshots. I heard you making a joke. What do we do?
First thing I do is
You
get
want
up to the
come
mic.
up here? Yeah, I'll take
And then I'd be shot for doing something stupid like that. All right, so how many people here have animals, dogs and stuff like that? Okay, good. The dog hears a loud noise, what do they do? Okay, well, what else do they do? They run as fast as they can, am I correct? All right, so we can learn a little bit from the instincts of the animal kingdom. Flight is one of the responses that can save your life. But we need to be level-headed, all right? So that we know what we're doing, and we don't run like the water bison up each other and then the lion kills everybody. So we need to be smart. How many people here feel you're observing? Great. Without looking, how many exits are there? Yes, Pamela, there are 4. I love you. That's so good. All right.
I grew up with them.
There are 4 exits. Many of you don't know. You have to be an active participant in observing in your life. When a police officer goes to eat in a restaurant, they usually eat and sit in the back with their back to the wall and they observe this. It becomes rote. It becomes something that they do regularly. You need to be vigilant in understanding your environment. So the first thing I would do to answer the question is I would flee. And of course, take your loved ones, let's see as fast as you can. Determine where the threat is, which means where the gun is. If it's coming from there, you want to be like a good animal, you want to run to that exit if you can, or the closest exit. Right? After you do that, there are recommendations in situations like a lockdown in a school where somebody enters or whatever, that when this situation is you hide. But isn't that a great place to hide over here? I wouldn't want to hide. I wouldn't want to be like Paris where somebody's going around saying, okay, and doing something horrible like that. You don't want to make yourself the best victim, all right? You don't want to make yourself available for that. If you were to hide, there are 2 types of hiding. One is concealment, where you put something like this where they can't see you, but it could be shot through. And the other one is cover, where it's something like a mailbox or something if people are shooting outside. So you have to understand that. There's another thing, okay, that we're now starting to recommend as a possibility. This is the last choice, but if you have no choice and you're trapped, is to fight. So you need to look around for the available, we call them weapons of opportunity, what's there. What do you think some weapons of opportunity might be in this room?
Branch.
Huh?
Branch.
Okay, in this room. Yeah, but in branch. Okay, a fire extinguisher, one of the best weapons around, and also something that can possibly disorientate somebody if you were to spray it. Candlestick, a chair, a barrier of any sort. But you have to do it with fervence. You have to do it hard and fast, without hesitation, so that you can offer the best scenario for your own safety. Now, I'm telling you, this is not the first choice, okay? This is the last choice, but it is a choice that's available to you. You don't want to give somebody, and also it depends on the circumstance. Do you have 1 shooter? Do you have 2 shooters? You know, a revolver holds 5 or 6 bullets. That's not a bad thing to know, so that if the person has shot 6 times with a revolver, it's highly unlikely that they're going to be able to continue to shoot without reloading. Different automatics have different opportunities. Automatic weapons now, became a weapon of choice. It takes things out of the scenario. But be observant and be vigilant and be level-headed. Now let's say if you've escaped, all right, and there are still people trapped in there. Not only do you have a social and moral responsibility, and a spiritual one on my end, but you want to be able to get the police there as fast as possible. So when you call 911, once again, try to be level-headed. Tell them the location that you're at. Tell them the entrance of where it, no north, south, west, east, if you can. If not, you'll say the entrance with the big statue in front of it or whatever. Give them intel on the people. Not that you would have time to, but we all have the best intelligence gathering devices in the world. Cell phones, right? Put it on video during the entire time if you have the presence of mind to do that. So they can hear and see some of the things that you can. Go a safe distance away. Put yourself behind, not concealment, but something with cover, the engine block of a car, behind it. And just give as much information as you can so they know. If there were more than 1 shooters, if there's a description. I guarantee if you turn around, you don't know who's behind you, unless you're related to them. Or who's to the left of you, or who's to the right of you. be aware of your surroundings. Understand that there's a lot of things that go on, so you need to be able to control yourself a little bit, because your body has a fight and flight response. So you're going to, vision's going to narrow. So you need to be able to do the best that you can in an emergency situation to get the best result. It's not likely to happen, but it can happen. And unfortunately, in the environment we have today, and just a little comment on this, terrorism has been all around the world and has been changing people's lives. The main mission, because I worked in the terrorist task force, the main mission of the terrorists is to cause confusion and chaos, economic devastation, by committing small acts in an economical way to create evil, I call it, all right? Don't let it change your life. Don't let it change your passion for life. Don't let it change the way you live. Okay, just be more careful, because they'll win, okay, these evil people, if you let it change your life.
The woman said, we just came from the bank and we deposited everything. She had all the money in her pocketbook. I don't know how she was smart enough to. So she had it in her pocketbook. He never looked. So he goes, I'm going in your bedroom. Do I have to worry about any kind of an alarm? Now, I used to put up a separate backup system in people's bedrooms years ago when the technology was a little different. It was almost like putting in 2 alarms. So I had their bedroom door alarm. So they got handcuffed to their foyer, and the guy goes into the bedroom, opens up the door, and the alarm goes off. Now the guy runs out, puts a gun to the husband's head, and says, I should kill you for this. And he did, and he ran out. So they notify, they call back the house, of course they can't answer. Central Bank calls the daughter in Jersey. The daughter in Jersey calls the neighbor comes out, looks in the window, and sees them handcuffed. 5 police cars are there. But this was Halloween. This is when you want to be off, not on guard all the time. You don't want to be skeptical. So even be skeptical of that. My solution to that is portable panic button. Well, my daughter left candy outside. They took the candy bar. We got it on camera though. Carry a portable panic button if you're worried about that. You can keep it in your hand. And if you're answering the door, all you got to do is press that. It's going to make the siren go off. Don't worry, they're opportunists. They're not there to just take you. They'll flee with the sirens ringing and central calling. But it's better than nothing, and it's better than not handling trick-or-treaters. Latchkey kids, big thing. We always have with that. Kathy writes the newsletters for us all the time. A lot of people tell their kids that are home after school, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. If the doorbell rings, don't answer the door. Wrong. Because the burglar is ringing the doorbell to see if somebody's home. There's an attorney I have, an attorney friend of mine, that was actually, his daughter was home and his son was in the basement. This happened only about 1.5 years ago. A woman rings the doorbell and says, can I speak to Janet? And the daughter answers and says, there's no Janet here. The girl leaves, goes back to a van. His daughter leaves the house, doesn't put the alarm on. No alarm. Son was still downstairs. Daughter leaves, and apparently she was the lookout for the 2 guys that were in the car. Because what happened then is they come back to the door, ring the doorbell again, nobody answers. They went around the back and they took the back sliding door off the track. They came in from the back sliding door. They were able to open it. So they ransacked the first floor, but they don't go down the basement for some reason. When the son was down there, he comes up after they leave. He had heard the movement upstairs. He had heard the walking. He comes up. The door is open in the back. He calls his dad. Dad, did the sister leave the door open in the back? The whole sliding door's open? No, I don't think so. She didn't leave like that. They found out they were being burglarized. So that can happen also. Put that alarm on. If your kids are home, make them put the alarm on. Get a signal on your cell phone saying that the kids they shut it off when they get home at 3 o'clock, they put it back on. If you're in the shower and you can't hear your doorbell, because they always want to ring the doorbell first to see if you're home. You heard about the ninja burglar. He was just apprehended. He did 160 burglaries in the time that he was, well, besides just that round, he did other places. And 60-something, 41% of the burglaries were when people were home. So it's not something that burglary only happens when nobody's home. When I was in my house, we were sleeping on a Sunday morning, and my aunt, who was my tenant at the time, comes upstairs and the garage is all broke. Somebody smashed the garage. Somebody backed up a pickup truck into my garage, They didn't ring the bell, I guess. If they did, we didn't hear it. And that's how they were trying to break in. They did that, they probably parked a half a block away, see if anybody comes out. If nobody comes out, then they would have went into the garage door and came in. Or they would have tripped the alarm, so. I alarm everything. I alarm my Christmas lights, I alarm shrubs, I'm an alarm maniac. And something with the burglar, the one that was in the ninja burglar, my cousin, the ninja burglar, when he jumped out, he broke into my customer's house on Beatty Street. And I called my customer up, I said, but I put the alarm in, what happened? He goes, well, we were across the street at my dad's house, so we didn't put it on, we're only across the street. I said, holy jeez, you have the alarm, don't question anything, just put it on. 2 days later, he gets burglarized again by the same ninja burglar. He must have saw something in the house that he wanted to come back. I called my customer back again. You know the papers again, what happened? I didn't think he'd come back twice, he already burglarized. Well, you didn't put this. So now we put the alarm on all the time. 9-volt batteries, just a quick thing. Be careful when you throw out those 9-volt batteries. They're short and they can start a fire. So you can put them in a drawer in your kitchen and it could go up against something that's metallic. Either put tape over those things, because we're hearing more and more about that. Eddie told me about that. So,
Only two batteries.
only 2 batteries, right.
The bulb.
And more an alarm, I don't care, you got deadbolts, is Frankie locks with you? Locks are nice, but a little crowbar underneath your sleeve over here beats any lock pretty much. Just hold on, open that door. Many times when I was a policeman, you would see the bolting hanging. That's what they did, they crowbar to come in, they go in your kitchen, they take one of your knives in the kitchen, because they want to arm themselves. They don't want to get caught coming in with a knife, because it's a higher degree felony. So they take your knife, they walk around the house, do the burglary, leave the knife on the kitchen table, because the people used to say, why would they steal my knife for them? They left it here? No, it's for their own protection. And that's what ends up happening in typical burglary. They all go into your master bedroom, almost every time, 99% of the time. So if you want to hide all your stuff, you think you're smart, hide it under the rug over there, or under the drawer, behind the side. No, they'll find it. They take your bill case, they get all your drawers on the bed, they look at everything, little radiators, they put the stuff in the pillowcase a lot of the time, because if they're caught running from the police, they put a pillowcase on the fence, then they get caught with nothing on them, sometimes they get away with it. So that's just a quick thing on burglary. But all these things that we're talking about, there are devices, there are carbon monoxide detectors, there are smoke detectors. You may be saying to yourself, I gotta do it, I'm going to do it. Actually, please try, and try to convince other people to do it too. We're here to help you think, and we hope you enjoy it. We're going to ask you some questions now. Yeah, anybody have any questions? You said a lot of stuff, so now Marvin, not you. But anybody else have a question? Anybody? Nothing on all this stuff? Okay, yeah.
I have a question, goes back to shutting off the electric and,
We're going to get you a mic.
oh,
Look at this, man. The coach, this is great. I'll tell you. We're wrapping up now. And then we're coming to your seminar next. We're coming to his seminar starts at 12:15.
Don't put those iPhones away, we're gonna steal all your secrets.
Go ahead, good question.
Before you mentioned that you need to shut the electricity off in case of flooding, and I believe it was the heat. My husband can't even put a nail in the wall, neither can I. How do you close off that stuff?
Why don't you have somebody come in that's handy and show you? You know, if it's the gas, there's a gas meter that's in a certain place in your house. Have them shut that. There are circuit breakers when you first come in. There's a panel where you can shut the circuit. But have somebody that's handy show him. And let him practice. Let him do it 2 or 3 times himself. Just so that he gets used to it. Because it's practice that helps you. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a
Go ahead,
question.
sir.
Wood burning fireplace.
Wood burning
Does
fireplace.
that affect carbon monoxide?
Yes, it does.
Yes, anything that burns.
If your flue is not operating properly and not clean every year, it absolutely will create carbon monoxide.
I'm sorry?
If the flue that you have, if your flue is not maintained every year, cleaned every year, it will absolutely create carbon monoxide.
And don't forget, a lot of times, people don't realize that you have to open that flue. People shut it not to make the air escape. But if your kids come home and decide to entertain their friends and put the fireplace on, and that flue is closed, you're talking about a great situation here where the poison could be throughout the whole house.
Should you leave the windows open when you are operating wood burning fireplace?
Well, first of all, I just want to backtrack for a second. Just for anybody, we do have, the New York City Fire Department has a table over there, and we do have all information pertaining to smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, where they should go, where they shouldn't go, and where the carbon monoxide actually comes from, and what to do in those rooms. So everything is answered up there. There's fire extinguisher use, candle use, kitchen, fire safety, so everything is up there.
George, tell them about the free stuff that they don't know about yet.
Also, yeah, we say, if anyone is interested, if you need a smoke alarm or carbon monoxide alarm, we have combination units. There's smoke and carbon monoxide with a battery built in that's good for 10 years. That's the New York City law now. If you replace your smoke alarm, it has to be replaced with a smoke alarm that has a 10-year battery. There's just a little affidavit that you have to fill out so they don't think I'm selling them on Highland Boulevard, because they are quite expensive in the store. But we can give one per family, and we'll be happy to do so. Just go see my partner at the table, and he'll take care of you.
And the Red Cross has stuff over here, free handouts. So take a look at all these handouts, but we will be emailing you all the stuff that we discussed today. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. Appreciate it.